What has Jungkook been hiding all this time? Why did he stay away from his own family? Who is responsible for these wounds that never heal? A new fact is revealed. HYB is suspected to be the main trigger, and Jungkook's emotional confession makes ARMY unable to hold back tears. Do you really know Jungkook? Have we only seen his side of the stage, his sweet voice, his smile that never fails to thrill, without knowing that there are deep wounds that are never shown? Why did the surname suddenly become a heavy word to be spoken by him? Why is he no longer seen attending the moments of togetherness that he usually takes, even when his schedule is full? And what hurts the most? What is Jungkook really hiding from his own family? All of those questions started popping up one by one, along with a leak from a former longtime staffer who once worked quite closely with Jungkook's family. Not random rumors, but stories that seem to open the veil of secrets that have been tightly locked for many years. A fact that makes anyone, especially the ARMY, unable to hold back emotions. A child who looks so cheerful in front of the camera. It turns out that all this time is storing a storm in the heart. And the storm, according to the source, has one big name behind it. HYB. Is it possible that the company where Jungkook grew up is the main reason why he is now away from his family? Is all this just a management strategy? Or is there a hidden role deliberately disguised with the words contract and professionalism? What really happened when Jungkook decided to withdraw from media activities and even avoid anyone with ties to his family, especially his father? The first clue came from Jungkook's absence from one of the most important family events a few years ago. When all his brothers were present, he did not appear at all. No photos, no messages, not even sayings. Just silence. At that time, many thought it was due to a busy schedule. But now, as time goes on, and after Jungkook himself chose to disappear from the spotlight before enlisting in the military, the question again arises, could he have deliberately avoided it? What makes it all the more suspicious is the drastic change in Jungkook's attitude since the beginning of last year. He became quieter, more introspective, and more often aloof, even in BTS pivotal moments. Despite always appearing professional in front of the camera, many ARMY noticed that something was changing. His gaze, his gestures, and even the way he answered questions in interviews felt like he was restricted, like he was being guarded. And then came the news that shook things up. Jungkook had allegedly been avoiding direct contact with his father for the past more than 2 years. Did the father do something that made Jungkook so upset? Or is it that Jungkook feels he has failed to meet his family's expectations? An insider source said that HYB had a hand in this communication rift. It said the agency was putting pressure on Jungkook to maintain his image, limiting interactions with families deemed out of line with the public narrative they wanted to build. But how is that possible? How can a company regulate a child's relationship with his own family? However, this is not just speculation. Jungkook himself once gave a gesture in a live before his military enlistment when an ARMY man asked about his family. His facial expression instantly changed, his voice weakened, and he simply replied with words that would never be forgotten. "There are things I can't talk about right now." The sentence became the center of speculation, discussion, even concern. What can he talk about? Why should he apologize? Time goes on. And now, when Jungkook is in the military, a place where he is completely inaccessible to anyone but the closest, it all seems to be reaching its peak. He is not seen in public activities, does not appear in the family schedule, and even reportedly avoids direct communication with those who were previously close to him. Some of the staff said Jungkook completely shut himself up and only spoke as necessary. He reportedly refused a visit from family members who wanted to visit him secretly. And what makes it all the more heartbreaking, the visit is said to have come from the father. Is Jungkook really hurt? Is there really an internal pressure on the part of the family that makes him feel no longer safe to open up? Or on the contrary, was it HYB who was hiding something from him, something that made the family relationship deteriorate? Internal rumors suggest that some important documents related to Jungkook's initial contract as a teenager were never actually explained to his family. There have been disagreements between the father and the agency for a long time, which led to a quiet tension behind the grandiose stage that we have seen so far. Even more astonishing, Jungkook reportedly learned something he himself had never been told before, the fact about his decision to become an idol since his teens, which turned out to be seasoned with interference from certain parties in his own family. He felt betrayed. And it was that sense of betrayal that made him choose silence. Be alone. Stay away. Even from his parents. Is this the reason why Jungkook seems to never really talk about his father in an emotional context, in contrast to how he calls his mother or brother? Why does his expression always stiffen whenever the topic of family comes up? Did HYBE know about this wound and still let it go? Or did they create it? The army was divided. Some blamed the agency for being considered too meddling in the artist's personal affairs. Others began to question Jungkook's past decisions. But one thing is for sure, Jungkook is not doing well. And now, all eyes are beginning to open to something we may have overlooked, that beneath the glitter of the stage and the glitz of popularity, there is a boy struggling to forgive himself, his family, and maybe a world that has treated him more as a product than as a human being. Will Jungkook speak? Will he return with the buried truth? Or will he continue to hide in order to protect the good name of those who once hurt him? That question has not been answered. But one important clue may have just surfaced. An old friend of Jungkook, who did not want to be named, said that before entering the military, Jungkook wrote something in his notebook. The book was taken with him to the camp, and on the first page, there's only one sentence. "Mom, if I don't go back to the way I was, please forgive me. It's not your fault." Such a simple sentence, but implying a deep wound. Is this a form of inner separation from someone who can no longer pretend to be strong? Is this a sign that Jungkook may never return as the same child? Armies around the world are waiting. Not for a new album, not for a spectacular comeback, but for one thing much more important: the certainty that their idol, this golden child of the Korean nation, will find peace with himself. And maybe one day, also reconciled with the family he once loved and who knows since when he began to avoid. But is it really all that simple? That Jungkook is only hurt by dissent or the openness of the past? Or is there another dark side yet to be revealed? Was it really just a difference of thought that made him keep his distance from his father? Or is it that Jungkook is harboring an unforgivable trauma? One of the sources working in HYBE's internal security said that since 2021, Jungkook began refusing any requests for visits from family, especially from his father. Each of those requests came through managerial channels, and each time it came, Jungkook gave a short answer: not the time. Until now, there hasn't been a single moment where he said, "Now is the time." Why? Is the wound still gaping? Or is there really something he hasn't been able to deal with? And more horrifically, could it be that Jungkook himself doesn't want the public to know about this very deep and so personal secret? From the records of internal psychologists who deal with several HYBE artists, it is mentioned that there are cases categorized as emotional isolation by corporate structure, where idols are slowly removed from their emotional support systems, namely families, to ensure that all sides of their lives can be fully controlled by the agency. Is Jungkook also a victim of this system? If so, then a new question arises: who allowed all this to happen? Did Jungkook's family really hand him over to the entertainment world when he was still too young, without fully understanding his psychological and emotional risks? Or are they also victims of a narrative built too sweetly by management? And if so, then who will apologize to Jungkook? Did his parents realize how deep the wounds they left behind were? Do they know that while the whole world adores him, Jungkook's heart is actually struggling to find the one thing that is more important than anything else: a sense of security? Someone from the BTS staff who was once quite close to Jungkook shared a small but very emotional moment. At that time, they were filming a travel documentary video of a world tour, and when the camera stopped recording, Jungkook sat alone in the corner of the room, opened his phone, and stared at the screen for a long time. When asked what she was doing, she said quietly, "I just want to hear your voice," but did not call, just staring. It was as if there was a distance he could no longer bridge. The story shows something deeper than just family disagreements or misunderstandings. This is not about ordinary conflicts. It's about a sense of loss in a crowd, about someone who has everything: fame, fan love, even wealth, yet loses the one most basic thing: anyone should have: the comfort of returning home. Another surprising piece of evidence comes from an old video taken when BTS was just starting out. In one of the night practice footage, many know Jungkook as a talented teenager from Busan who eventually broke onto the global stage, but few know that behind his incredible journey lies a not entirely happy childhood. There was no physical violence, no reports of abuse, but that's precisely why his wounds are hard to see, and even harder to admit. According to one of Jungkook's elementary school teachers, who asked to remain anonymous, the boy was always quiet when his classmates laughed during recess. He always drew in his books. Not because he likes to draw, but because he seems to be avoiding something, he said. What exactly is a child of Jungkook's age avoiding? Are there loud noises in the house? Or is the shadow of parental desire too great for him to bear? In one episode of the BTS documentary that was not revealed to the public, there was a small confession from Jungkook. They were recording training memories, and he said quietly, "I think I've changed since I was forced to choose between a dream and a home." The sentence lasted only a few seconds before the video was cut. But the word forced resonates louder than the entire soundtrack it has ever sung. S.O. What kind of home cannot be a place of departure for a child? A distant relative who once lived in the same city with John's family mentioned that Jungkook's father was a very charismatic but stubborn figure. He's not a bad guy, but he's very disciplined. Maybe because he wants his son to succeed, but how? Too cold. That statement is reinforced by the fact that since Jungkook moved to Seoul, he has hardly returned to his hometown, except for a very brief important affair. Even during long holidays, he often chooses to stay in the dorm or participate in additional training. Was it Jungkook's personal decision? Or is it because you feel like you don't have a place at home anymore? Keep in mind that when Jungkook decided to move to Seoul, he was only 13 years old. Too young in age to separate from the mother, too fragile to let go of emotional ties with the family. But the decision was taken. And, as we now know, he became a star. But who knows how much it cost to get to that point? On many occasions, Jungkook mentions that Jimin is Hyung, who always makes him feel safe. But why does he need to feel safe from a friend, not from family? And in some of the now-deleted VLI videos, Jungkook has displayed behaviors that reflect deep anxiety. Biting his lips when talking about the past, looking down for a long time before answering questions about his hometown, and most poignantly, suddenly saying, "Sometimes I wonder why I miss home when I don't want to go there." It was the deepest irony he had ever uttered. If it is true that Jungkook's father was a figure who did not support his emotions from the beginning, is it possible that he is currently trying to fix all of that? Could it be that the message Jin recited was actually part of his father's attempt to apologize? Let's go back to the emotional moment that opened it all, when the genie read the letter to the camera without mentioning the name of the sender. Many fans thought it was from the army, but those who were observant of his tone of voice must have picked up another vibration. Jin looked into the lens with teary eyes as he said, "She never knew how proud we all were of her. But now, when she can take a break, I hope she knows that love is never lost." That sentence is too personal for ARMY, but it's perfect for dads who want to make up for lost time. But the question is, will Jungkook open his heart? There is still one story that has never been revealed publicly. The moment in which Jungkook turned down one big advertising offer because the theme involved father and son. His agency at that time tried to persuade because the value of the contract amounted to more than $1 million. But Jungkook simply said, "I don't want to pretend about something I can't feel." And that sentence silenced all negotiations. Jungkook is not hating. It's just not ready. Maybe not yet now. With his time in the silent military, could all those wounds slowly be opened? Or is it even more hardened because he is forced to face everything without the distraction of work, fans, and the stage? Will the father try again? Will there be a secret meeting between them? And if true, will Jungkook embrace the past that once made him choose to remain silent in 1,000 languages? The army can only wait. But waiting doesn't mean being passive. To wait is to hope. Waiting means loving from afar, even if there is no news at all. Because who knows, when this is all over, When this whole emotional storm subsides, we'll not only see Jungkook return to the stage as an idol, but as a kid who finds his way back to his own heart.